GOP Rep Dave Taylor's congressional office has a swastika in it. That's super cool. And it was found out through correspondence with none other than his legislative correspondent, who's this Groyper over here. It's another goddamn young Republican. That kid probably put it there. Yeah, probably. I mean, if it's a congressional office, it's not just one room, right? Well, it's you have desks for the staffers and stuff. He probably has it up, you know, at his desk, but I wouldn't be surprised if Dave Taylor is aware that he has this here. You know, I do like this one here. Lower Ohio, Central Ohio, soon to be Ohio. That's good. That's great. Florida. Yeah, I see. Wait, it's all Ohio. Very good. Very good. What do you want from me, man? They're Nazis. They're all what do you want from me? I don't know. Pronouns masculine. Woke. There's nothing people like this want more than to believe they're part of some racially persecuted class. At the end of the day, like, his beliefs, his predilections have very little to do with his race. Some of the most aggressive neo-Nazis in this country are Latin or Indian or whatever, you know? We all see them online. It's not actually about being white. None of them actually believe or care about anything. They're just loser incels. They're unfuckable. They feel unattained. They feel like they have no future in their life. They know they're not going to be able to buy a house, blah, blah, blah. They're pathetic in every way. They're socially untalented, and they're drawn like moths to a flame to any ideology that gives them purpose. They just want acceptance, you know? You have to acknowledge that these people are pathetic. I refuse to engage with this in any other format. But also, by the way, incredibly, and speaking to one's IQ, by the way, how stupid you'd have to be to keep this up on your backboard while doing a Zoom call. They keep forgetting, man. This is like the young neo-Nazi equivalent of like a furry wearing the fursuit when going to meet their partner's parents for the first time. You know, they're so in their in-group, they have no idea how they look to the rest of the world. They got their group chats, and then you take a look from the outside. Rape epic, based in white pilled, grape, trad wife. Everyone done your daily K-On rewatch? Like, you look at it from the outside, these people look like psychopaths, and they forget about it, and then they embarrass themselves in public. They think their time is now. They don't understand. No matter how much they act like this, or how frequently people like them act like this, Nazism will always be a freak ideology to the masses. Like, they are what they are because they're badly socially acclimated. You can't build a mass movement built on every member of it being poorly socially acclimated. It would be like arguing that because inceldom has grown more common, that incels will soon like rule the country. Inceldom isn't just a state of being. To an extent, it pertains an ideology, right? You can't have inceldom rule the country. It will always be an outgroup. It's defined by being an outgroup. It doesn't work that way. Correction, incels already rule the country. Well, incels control a couple of higher offices, but it's worth remembering that they have had basically no effect on the broader culture, you know? Look, I'm sorry, at the end of the day, and they hate this, they despise this fact, no matter how popular Nazism might become with these young Republicans, which will aid them greatly in their long-term careers worshiping Israel and keeping the Epstein files covered up. Oh, I'm sure. It won't change the fact that culturally, their ideology, their ideas, they're repellent, and they're just not going to be popular with people because you can't sell them on your ideas. Can you imagine watching one of these people trying to sell a person on their ideas? Not on belonging to their in-group, which is easy for them to do because they mostly appeal to their own, like, loser cliques, but their ideas. Like, imagine this guy talking to, like, a 45-year-old in Ohio and showing them, like, a Groyper Twitter feed and being like, well, okay, so here's how this makes sense, okay? So, how do you feel about accusing people of having been raped when they disagree with you online? What? Okay. So, here's a drawing of a little girl. Now, it is essential to the future of the white race that you not have a problem with me dating her. What? Okay. So, like, I think we should kill 7 billion people. Okay. Like, it will never work. They're demons. They're fake demons, is my point. You do it for social affirmation, but they're not, like, committed to these ideas, you know? I don't know which is worse. I don't want to play this card again, because I think these people are repellent and miserable and wretched. It's not even about them being evil. I've engaged with people who I consider to be pretty evil. You can have a good time with them. My experience with this like archetype of person is that they're just like holistically wretched. You know, they're just not really worth your time or consideration. We just got to give people a narrative, man. They wouldn't have to be so wretched if you just gave them a narrative. They're weak and they're just looking to be drawn to a fire, you know? It's what Mamdani works with these people, Bernie. They need to feel a sense of community and belonging. Again, it's not about exonerating them of their moral crimes or anything like that. It's just you got to understand where this stuff comes from. A good rule of thumb is to not invest more time into someone than they do themselves, and they've invested negative time into themselves. You know, I think that's an excellent point. Yeah. You can't invest too much time into dissecting their ideology because they have put no time into doing that. Their beliefs, motivations, what they want from the world, all of these, they have put zero time or effort into thinking about it. They adopt these these hyperbolic, ridiculous, non-serious positions because they want to avoid engaging with those things seriously, you know? And it's so much easier, I imagine, for them to blame everything wrong in their lives on the Jew or the fact that white people are oppressed or whatever than it is to engage in any kind of serious self-critique. It's like how a lot of people who were paramilitary enforcers for the Communist Party joined the brown shirts in Germany. Yeah, or Mussolini, who was like a thug for unions before he founded the, well, not founded, but before he became the head of the fascist movement, yeah. It's really just about, like, giving people a sense of belonging, which the liberals fail utterly in doing, you know? The only reason the liberals have any kind of staying power culturally is because they borrow it from mainstream progressive celebrities. You know, it's not actually liberalism that has cultural power. It has none. It's progressivism that does. And liberals and progressives cavort often enough that sometimes the power blurs between the two, you know? Hollywood celebrities, popular social movements, these things aren't necessarily about liberalism, but there's enough of an overlap that the Democrats can take advantage of that. Republicans, on the other hand, have been very successful in building a cultural identity of their own, which is why there's not as much of a disconnect there. There isn't like, you know, a vaguely conservative aligned mass culture apparatus that occasionally like overlaps with the Republicans but mostly doesn't. Republican aligned media is always Republican, and that's their only identity, which works both for and against them in a lot of cases. Vash, I remember when you debated a Nazi and you asked for an example of a pro-white policy and he said small business tax credits. These people are all vibes, not substance. I think I remember that too, that was quite a while ago. Yeah. Here's J.D. Vance standing in at the Charlie Kirk show again, talking about the young Republican I Love Hitler group chat leaks.
By focusing on what kids are saying in a group chat, grow up. I'm sorry. Focus on the real issues. Don't focus on what kids say in group chats. But there's another angle to
people in their 30s and people in the young Republican parties all across the country.
This that I just have to be honest about. I mean, I'm like an old guy.
Sorry about the
I'm 41 years old. I have 3 kids. You know, I grew up in a different world, right? Where not most of the stupid things that I did when I was a teenager and a young adult, they're not on the internet. Like, I'm going to tell my kids, especially my boys, don't put things on the internet. Like, be careful with what you post. If you put something in a group chat, assume that some scumbag is going to leak it in an effort to try to cause you harm or cause your family harm. But the reality is that kids do stupid things, especially young boys. They tell edgy, offensive jokes. Like, that's what kids do.
To be fair, these people are mentally children. It probably doesn't bode well for the future of this movement of like young neo-Nazis that the best defense their leaders have to offer for them, like in their favor, is essentially infantilization. You know what I mean? Like, what they want is to be able to say, Trump won now. It doesn't matter. Deus Vult, brother! And then everyone starts waving their swastika flags, you know? They want it to be like this big coming out moment. But in reality, it is embarrassing, and it always will be embarrassing. And the neo-Nazis who are a little bit more competent about keeping themselves under wraps, like J.D. Vance or Miller, will largely have to, like, they are defending it, of course, but it's a defense in, like, an infantilizing way. You get what I mean, right?
And I really don't want us to grow up in a country where a kid telling a stupid joke, telling a very offensive stupid joke, is cause to ruin their lives.
Tens of thousands of messages from people in state young Republican Party leadership positions talking about how they love Hitler and so on. Not really jokes. They weren't jokes. They were just statements of belief. Also, keep in mind, this is the same guy who's been going on to Twitter talking about how if you criticize Israel, you deserve to be deported. He's bragged about people being deported for criticizing Charlie Kirk, criticizing Israel, criticizing Trump. So yeah, fake free speech believer. Obviously, not that you know thought otherwise.
At some point, we're all going to have to say enough of this BS. We're not going to allow the worst moment in a 21-year-old's group chat to ruin a kid's life for the rest of time. That's just not okay. Like, we live in a digital world. This stuff is now etched in stone online. We're all going to have to say, you know what? No. We're not doing this. We're not canceling kids because they do something stupid in a group chat. And if I have to be the person who carries that message forward, I'm fine.
And he knows, of course, that they're not just kids, which is why he insists on saying kids over and over again, because he's trying to lie to cover them. I mean, obviously, you know. I've seen everyone clowning on him. I think his rhetoric here is weak and not really viable. Well, yeah, of course, because most Democrats at this point are aware of the fact that Republicans are Nazis. I think that even normie Democrats probably feel that way about people like Vance or Miller. Probably a lot of them about Trump, even though I think that's a little bit more complicated, a little bit less accurate. Certainly this young Republican craze. I mean, it's getting covered enough. I think most Democrats are aware of this. Honestly, the group of people who I think are least aware of the fact that young Republicans are all neo-Nazis are probably older Republicans. Like, again, as much as there might be an overlap between these groups online, to an offline older Republican, the idea that all of their young ones are neo-Nazis is probably unthinkable, you know? Because, again, they're stupid and they don't understand that what their ideas are, you know? They're genuinely, like, they're unintelligent. They don't understand that having a movement and an ideology built entirely off of xenophobia, racism, and a desire to do mass deportations is just Nazi shit. They don't get it. They're probably like, my guess is that Vance is sweating a little bit over that being like the negative association, you know? Well, the optics. I'm telling you, man, this party is not going to survive with them alone. It's the midwit crisis again. Oh, by the way, reminder, these dumb fucks, the groiped up 22-year-old neo-Nazis, all midwits, every one of them. Every single one of them thinks like, I've taken the final red pill and I have elevated my thinking beyond that of the average Republican. The average Republican is a stupid Midwestern pig farmer. I am the enlightened. I am the Aryan supremacist. I am a genius. Every single one of them is like this. And therefore, they all fall into the midwit trap of forgetting that they need that larger base. Are you saying nitwit or midwit? Midwit. As in they think they're smarter than the average person, so they end up overextending and actually acting stupider. It is smarter for the Republican Party to be made up of people who are not all open braggart neo-Nazis. That is really, really bad for the Republican Party, for it to be just broadly known and accepted that their young base is full of neo-Nazis. That's not good for them. But these midwits think that, like, well, they're the next stage. They're the next evolution of the party, which is why, have you ever noticed how much they like saying shit on Twitter like, you guys have no idea what you've unleashed? This was nothing. You have no idea what's coming next. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that phrase or some version of it, probably hundreds of times at this point, and it's in response to everything, like anything that happens, they say that in response to it. They think they're inevitable. They think they're the wave of the future. The original Nazis did too. But they don't realize, again, they're really repellent and off-putting. The people saying, you know, you have no idea what's coming are usually the ones with the little girl anime profile pictures. They belong to a social cohort that has no future because it is literally built on being a loser. Like, they could not be who they are if they were socially competent enough to drive a movement forward. You get me. They're just loser pedophiles and everyone else knows it. You know what's even scarier, in my opinion? I think that it's very realistic to assume, it's probably more likely than not, that a lot of the aforementioned groiped up young Republican neo-Nazi lolicon, so on and so forth, people who you know what I mean, like every category, you've seen a million of them on Twitter, a lot of them aren't even pedophiles, lolicons, or into anime in any way, shape, or form. They're doing it to fit in. In a way, isn't that even sadder? Like, it's because it's become an affect and an aesthetic of the movement, now it becomes based in red pill to adopt those characteristics. So now it's like, yeah, like, to see the depths these people will sink to make friends, you know? I'm only assuming, but I have to assume that's the case. I don't think like literally all of them can be pedophile. It has to be like that's just being like that just becomes a signifier of the movement. guy who posts guts when they've never watched Berserk. To them, I imagine it feels like that, you know? Yeah, if that's the case, that'd be pretty depressing. Look, all I can say is this. I'm in my 30s. I'm unk-pilled. I'm out the wagon. They're gonna put me out the pasture soon. They're sending my ass to a farm upstate where I get a year of chewing on the lowest quality short grass in the corner near the fence, and after that they put me down. I get it. However, I'm online a lot. I see a lot of people talking about what the dating scene is like in their early 20s, and I gotta say, they are that sad. You've seen it, right? Maybe indirectly, or I mean, a lot of you are in your 20s, so you would know. But like a lot of these young guys, the people who are like this, I mean, they're not doing good at all. They're a whole archetype, you know? I remember when I was growing up, so like not growing up, I guess, when I was in my early 20s, the big thing with guys that people looked out for, me as a bisexual guy and women just broadly, you know, whatever, was the pickup artistry, right? The pickup artistry, the people who were like you know, pulling from these internet tips on how to like neg women or whatever. To the most part, that's fallen to the wayside of like the incel, you know, freak neo-Nazi perma online rot that you see these days. And I think, at least based on what I've heard, the modern version of this is so much more prevalent than the pickup artistry was a decade ago, you know? Like nowadays, from what I've heard at least, it's borderline like a coin flip. What is negging? Oh God, taking me back. Before it was mildly harass women, now it's raping women is okay. Well, I feel like if in rhetoric at least, the pickup artists, well, a lot of them, at least the red pill guys, were pretty, you know, were arguing that rape isn't that bad online as well. I guess I don't really know. I don't really know what kind of like ideological through line you'd need to follow, or how much digging you'd have to do to find an equivalent to the fact that a significant number of young men in America today would probably say rape is based. Like they would I don't know if I'd go with as many as a quarter, like 25%. I'd probably say less than that, but like not a small amount. And they're not even saying it in a way that like relates to their life. They're just doing the in-group thing. You have to remember it starts as in-group and irony and it becomes their actual beliefs over time. Yeah, oh, for sure, 100%. Though I still think there's a disconnect past a point, because even the actual beliefs are so seeded with irony and insincerity that it's the extent to which they actually believe it, or actually can believe it, you know? Hollow people. Well, that is true.